Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Spirit and Soul podcast. I am your host, Tiffany Cohen, and today we have a very, very special guest with us. We have Emily the Mystic. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everyone. I am so overjoyed to be here today.
So happy to have you here. I love everything that you do, everything that you talk about on Instagram. I just love when your posts come up. It just like brightens up my day. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and how you became Emily the Mystic on Instagram? I look at you and I think of like this like larger than life feel. Like you really just embody the mystic. So tell us all the things.
Yes, so I am a true mystic, a very heart centered person by trade. I am an Akashic Records practitioner and teacher, as well as a psychic, an intuitive, a galactic channel, a podcast host myself of the Emily the Mystic Show, which Tiffany was a guest on recently, which was amazing. And yeah, so spirituality is my life's purpose. It's my life's work. I like to say that I study the soul for a living. So I am here to understand the mystery of the soul and help you get to know yourself and your own soul better. So that journey for me began pretty honestly very early on in childhood. I was a very intuitive, very dreamy child, a true Pisces to a T. So I was definitely born with a natural affinity for the spirit world. I had imaginary friends in childhood who I didn't realize, of course, at the time that I was speaking with real spirits, but I was born with the gift of being able to hear spirit in my head through hearing voices. And I also was born into a Roman Catholic household. So growing up, I went all through Catholic school. My mom raised me to be very traditionally Catholic. So within me, there was always this sort of conflict, this inner conflict between what I was told by my family, by my religion, by my school, and my natural experience with the unknown, with the universe, with the divine. And so I would kind of pick up on my spiritual interests in secret. I would go to Barnes and Noble and I would go to the library and I would head to the New Age section and just read as many books as I could about spirituality. I bought my first tarot deck when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old and just got so into it. I would write little full moon and new moon manifestation lists for myself when I was in high school. But it's interesting because I have no memories of sharing that with anybody else. I had no friends that were interested in it. It was very much kind of a secret side of me, a very private thing that I was interested in. And these spiritual interests kind of remained in the background, I would say, for most of my adult life. I went to college, studied business, marketing, graduated with a corporate job in the corporate retail space, and kind of, other than yoga, pushed and astrology kind of pushed away those spiritual interests in favor of leading a very normal adult life. And as many of us did, I had what I like to call my spiritual reawakening journey during the pandemic when I started working from home. And all of a sudden, I had all of this time to commit to myself, to start reading books again, to start listening to podcasts. I was commuting at the time back and forth to my corporate job, 45 minutes each way, had to go to New York twice a week for my retail job. So I had literally no time for myself. So being at home during the pandemic was vastly transformative for me because I had space. I had space to reflect, I had space to learn. And at the time, what was happening in parallel to this was that I knew that I needed to leave this job. I was absolutely miserable. I was so exhausted because I was getting up at 5 a.m. to get on the train to New York City twice a week. I wasn't sleeping. And my outlet at that time, in addition to my spiritual interests, was health and fitness. So I thought to myself, you know what? I am admiring the personal trainers in the gym. I love that they get to work with people one-on-one. I love seeing what they're doing. Why don't I start my own virtual personal training business? We'll see where that takes me. So this happened in January of 2020 before the pandemic hit. So as I was starting to work from home, I was starting to build an online business. I was starting to create a social media profile for myself. as a fitness coach, as a health coach. And then the spiritual reawakening was happening in parallel to that, and really started to weave it all together. And that was when I really discovered for myself that this is what I'm here to do. This is me. This is who I've been throughout my whole life. And now I actually get to share this with the world. It's just been absolutely unreal how much of an accelerated timeline, how it's unfolded so quickly. But it's been really cool to be part, to do it and to be doing the thing. And I love talking to other people about how you can make that possible for you too.
Yeah. I know we mentioned this too on your podcast, but I want to just really look at the parallels here between both of our stories. Like even from like the age we got our tarot decks and like all of these things, it's really amazing. And I find too that COVID, what a time to be around, right? Like this time there was either, I know that there are so many people that really suffered through COVID, and then there were so many people where it completely shifted their entire lives in a positive way. And I feel like for you, Emily, and for myself, like COVID was a time like that it was happening for us. And I know I recognized it immediately. Like, did you recognize that this was happening for you? Like as the world was shutting down, you're like, oh, this is happening for me.
I I was like, this is quite honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me, because I have time for myself and I can do the things that I love. And I'm a bit of a homebody. I'm a natural introvert. So I love being at home and reading my books and doing all of those things. So finally to have that gift given back to me was really amazing.
Wow. So, talk about the actual leaving of corporate America. Like, what really led it, and how did you really jump into this new life? Because basically, you just completely chose a new timeline for yourself. So, what was that like? Because I know so many people are either have one foot in, one foot out, or are dreaming of that moment.
Yeah, so I had been through a big time of transition in my corporate job. That was, I would say, it was around 2 years of time where they were moving me around to different positions within this job every like 4 months. So I would have to relearn a and I was just to be clear, I was a product buyer in the retail space. So they would move me to a new product category every 3 or 4 months, which is so overwhelming for someone in retail because you have to learn the product, you have to learn the vendors, you have to develop new relationships. So my brain was constantly spinning from all of that overwhelm of the job itself. And I just had a moment. And also too, what was happening was was my I have anxiety, and during this time my anxiety disorder was off the charts. I would wake up in the middle of the night with a racing heart. I was in having panic attacks and I didn't know what was wrong. I thought, oh, because we're taught like just go see a therapist and your therapist will help you. And of course, talk therapy is amazing. But for me, it was a symptom, an outward symptom of something deeper going on. So I realized I am not, my physical health can't handle this job for the long run. I can't, I would not be able to do it. So what's the point of me even being here if don't want to ascend the corporate ladder? So leading into that, I knew I had to make a change. And as I was building my fitness business, I started weaving in spirituality at the time. I was like, I have to set a deadline for when I'm going to leave because the pandemic isn't going to last forever. We're going to have to start going back to the office. And there was this inner fear, truly. Fear for me at that time was a little bit of a motivator because I did not want to go back to the office and go back to New York and be on the train twice a week. I had to leave. So I set in motion an idea and a timeline for myself that my birthday's in February. So I wanted to leave this corporate job in February to give myself a fresh start, to go all in on the business. I had made this decision in the fall of 2020. And at the time, what was also happening in parallel was that one of my family members started suffering from a health crisis and needed surgery. And I share this piece of the story because I find that whenever you're getting ready to make a big leap, into something new, there can often be a period of contraction where things start to maybe get a little bit worse before the leap, before they get better. And so often we can find ourselves afraid of making that leap and that jump because of the contraction phase that we're going through. Like, oh, this is my sign. It's not meant to be. I'm not supposed to do this. Like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
universe is telling me it's not the right time. It's not a good choice. So there can be these things out of your control that start happening that tell you otherwise, that point you away from your decision. But what I have learned is that those things that are happening on the periphery that are out of your control, they're actually a message that you're supposed to stay in your lane, and you're supposed to stay committed to yourself, and you're supposed to do the thing that you want to do. And when you commit to yourself, so for me, my family member was in a health crisis. I was like, oh my gosh, is it time for me to quit the job? I don't know. And I had a lot of resistance to my original plan, but I had to make the leap. I didn't tell a single soul in my family that I was quitting my job. I kept it a secret for months. And I left. I left in February of 2021, went home to help my family member with the surgery and their health crisis. They started healing, they started getting better. And what was really amazing was when I left, even though there was all this noise happening in the background, the universe did catch me, because I received a tax refund in the exact amount of money that I needed to pay my bills. After leaving the corporate space, my corporate checks ran out. I got the tax refund. That was enough for me to help me live for a month. And then I was able to rebuild my income in that time frame, and then started receiving the same amount of money that I had been making in my corporate job from there. So it really did
Amazing.
work out. And yeah, to this day, is one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah. And it's because you're truly living through your soul, like this is what you're meant to do in this life. That job got you here, right? And like you can have all the gratitude for the job, but it wasn't for you forever, right? The anxiety showing up, all the things, like your body's having a physical reaction to you not being where you're supposed to be long term, but gaining all of the lessons, etc., along the way. So I love your story so much. And what I kind of kept hearing in your story about even when you were a kid, right, is all these it's like almost like hiding these things, right? Like you hid from your family about that you left, and you hid from your family and friends about, your new moon rituals and your full moon rituals and all the things. And I feel like that's a powerful thing. And here's why. Um, I truly feel like we have to know our audience, right? And because that audience could have stopped you from where you are right now. How do you feel about that aspect?
And it's so true, because when I told my parents that I had left my job, I think I told them in May, maybe, and I had quit in February. Um, they said to me, well, we're so proud of you for following your dreams. And also, you were right to wait to tell us, because we would have told you not to do it. And I know that their influence on me has been so strong. And that's been a big thing that I'm here to heal through. I know that it really would have caused me to second guess my decision. So I'm really glad that at the time, and here's the thing, of course, I, as a spiritual teacher, want to advocate for you to speak your truth, in most moments of every single day. And also, I'm an advocate for protecting yourself, and, like you said, knowing your audience and sharing your truth with the people who are available to hear it. And in time, maybe that audience will shift and change. Maybe there will be people who weren't able to hear your message at the beginning who join the audience who is available to hear your message. And that audience will shift and change with time. But I do think it's really important to be authentic and honest with what you share, but at the same time, you don't need to go telling the stranger on the street that they have had 1,000 past lives and expecting them to believe you and want to participate in the journey with you, right? Just
Right.
doesn't make sense. So Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Okay. So now you leave your job, you're doing your thing. How did you get into all the different pieces of what you do? Because you wear a lot of different hats and they all come together into, I feel like they probably all come together for you into one beautiful umbrella of things. So what was the progression like of all the things you started learning and leaning into?
Yeah, I love this question because for me, it actually started with mediumship. So that was the first modality that I learned during the pandemic. What led me into mediumship was I had my first podcast around spirituality that I started listening to. One of the episodes was talking about this woman who is a shaman who could help you meet your spirit guides. And it was like a light switch went off for me. I was like, spirit guides. Oh my gosh, spirit guides. I knew about this. This was something I was fascinated by when I was 15 years old. So I knew I had to meet this woman who is the shaman who talked about the spirit guides. So I scheduled a reading with her. And this is one of the first spiritual readings that I ever had. You know, it's not something I really did for myself when I was growing up. I didn't grow up in a family where we went to see psychics or anything like that. So this was really new for me. So this was one of my first experiences getting a reading from someone. I remember this was the Friday before Memorial Day weekend of 2020. And she told me, Emily, did you know that you have the ability to speak to the other side? Did you know that you can talk to loved ones in spirit? And I just about fell out of my chair. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean that I can speak to people on the other side? I it just blew my mind, but there was a part of me that knew that was true. And a whole other piece of the story that we can get into only if we have time is that
Yeah, please.
I've been through a lot of loss in my life. I have a small family because I have lost a lot of loved ones. None of my grandparents are still around. I've lost an uncle, I've lost a cousin, I've lost a lot of people. And so loss and grief has been a really big part of my life and my healing journey. And now looking back on those times when I was navigating my grief, I can see how those loved ones were trying to connect with me and were trying to get in touch with me. Were sending me signs and symbols and dreams. And I didn't get it. Just totally wasn't open to it. I wasn't available for it because, like I said, the corporate job and being busy and overwhelmed, I had no space to make the space for the connection with my loved ones. So when this shaman told me about this gift, it just blew my mind because I was like, yeah, I can do this because Uncle Joe has been sending me signs for years. And now I get it. I make the connection. I can laugh about it now, by the way, because I've been through a lot of healing around these losses. And I know how challenging navigating grief can be. But for me, mediumship was one of those modalities that helped me get through some of those really hard healing processes, navigating through the pandemic, sitting with those losses, learning how to even go through grief that I thought I had processed years back, but really hadn't. Mediumship helped me and guided me through that. And I knew that I needed to start doing that for other people. So, what did I do? I started offering free readings on my Instagram page for health and fitness coaching, and they were really successful. So, I started offering readings at a real like $50 or some really, low price point. That was really successful. So it just really started taking off from there. I got a little side job as a virtual medium through a psychology and therapy office here in Philadelphia. So they helped me grow my practice for a time. I was only with them for a few months, but it was enough to kind of help me gain my confidence and give me a new base of clients and help me meet people to work with. And from there it snowballed so much that I decided for myself, hey, I want to teach this to other people. So that's when I started at the beginning of 2021. I started doing intuition coaching and psychic development because I had learned so much. It had changed my life in 6 months. I felt qualified at that time to start teaching it. So that's really where my business took off from there, was teaching mediumship and intuition to others. And Emily the Mystic was born
Wow.
from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So uh, like what I'm hearing from you is like that just this immense amount of trust in the universe. Like like to have somebody say to you, did you know that you're a medium? And you're like, yeah, actually, you know what? That makes sense. And then all of a sudden to be like, okay, I'm going to do a business around it, right? Like not even really like waiting for like the confidence to build and all of that stuff. It's like, yes, yes, that is true. This is true. This is my truth. And here we go. Right. And just starting like that is where people get tripped up. Truly.
Yeah, and I would say that's one of my biggest strengths. And I can look back to over my whole life, everything from getting my college internship, studying abroad, getting the corporate job, meeting my now partner of 9 years. I just lapped into it. And the example of meeting my partner, we met at a concert and I said to him, "Hey, can I have your phone number?" And then we started dating and it's been 9 years, right? So I'm the person who just does it. I'm like, and the second that I start to think about a decision, that's where I tend to get lost, because I will wait and I will sit and I will have the resistance. And then my biggest regret is that I haven't gotten started earlier. So for me, it's important when that intuitive download and hit comes in to plant the seed and just to see it start building from there.
Yeah, I think that trust factor is so important. And it's trusting in yourself. It's trusting in that the universe has your back. And when you don't have that trust, that's where you get caught up in all of the mental stuff that happens, right? The ego starts to be like, oh, wait a second, you got to stay safe, right? And then you don't actually bring the things to life because fear will start to kick in. But truly, what you're saying is like, once you get that intuitive download, if you can trust it and really start leaping from there, or at least start taking steps from there, you can actually really follow your heart's desires, your soul, right?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
So then how did the Akashic Records start coming on here?
Yes. So that journey for me began at the beginning of 2021. So I was teaching intuition and psychic development. And I was reading about, I kept seeing online the words Akashic Records pop up everywhere. I was seeing it on social media, I was seeing it on blogs, websites. I was like, what is this? And I had this idea in my mind that the Akashic Records were the people who gave readings or able to access them had this like mystical skeleton key, and they were going into this mystical Dead Sea Scroll like library and pulling out these long scrolls and doing these readings based on the mystery of the soul. And I was like, I want to do that. That sounds like Harry Potter. I want to know what that's all about. So so I started getting a couple of Akashic Records readings from different people, and totally fell in love with it. Knew that it was, and for me too, because I was offering mediumship psychic readings at the time, I felt like there was only so much information I could get access to for my clients. It was, the readings felt very surface level to me, and I was frustrated by
Mhm.
that because I'm a very deep deep person. And if I'm doing a reading for you, like, I want to get to the heart of the matter. I want to know what the root is of the problem that you've been dealing with for your whole life. Like, let's go there. That's where I want to go. And that's what the Akashic Records really taught me, is that there is a modality that we can use to get access to that level of information. So I took a certification class in that, which was probably 8 to 10 months. That was a big part of my journey in 2021. Finally, in the fall of 2021, I started offering readings in the Akashic Records and eventually started teaching it. And along that journey, discovered that I'm here to teach my own system. At the time, I was teaching my old teacher system, didn't really resonate with me anymore. The guides were like, it's time to quit that, put that away, put that to bed, and start your own journey, create your own course. So now I teach my own system of the Akashic Records. And that's been a really big part of my journey just this last year, 2024. So that's really been magical. And the modality itself, just so your listener knows what the Akashic Records are, they are the multidimensional metaphysical library of the soul. So they help us gain access to information about the soul's journey. So, not just what's going on in this lifetime, but who you were in your previous lives and traumas, negative influences, negative energies, resistances, fears that are holding you back in this lifetime that have built up probably from lifetimes and lifetimes before this one. So I really love this modality because it helps us gain access to such a high level of information.
Yeah. Akashic records are so important. I feel like it takes a special, I really do. I feel like it takes a specialized person to really hit that level that really begins to shift your life, like the person that like you're reading. I feel like there is a massive shift that can come from understanding from somebody reading your records, and you can start to take action from a different, it is like a deeper layer. So what have you seen from people? Like what transformations have you seen from people that, after they had their readings, I'm sure you've had a million stories.
Yes. Yeah. And just to preface this by saying, it fascinates me because these readings can be a little bit more high level than I think what people are used to. I think when people go in for a reading, they're like, well, tell me what decision to make between A or B. And the Akashic Records are like, no, this is why your soul is the way that it is. These are the lessons you're learning. So this is why you've attracted the circumstance in the first place. And this is what we need to do to shift your energy so that you're not attracting this kind of circumstance and you can start attracting something that's more aligned. And we need to clear this over here from your past life so that you can manifest something even better for yourself. So it's a little bit different than maybe a classic psychic reading or your classic reading with messages. It's a little bit of a different perspective, but that can be so healing because I find when people have a reading with me, they feel like it's a homecoming. There is a sense of, whoa, this person gets me. She understands me just at this level that, and people have such a deep emotional response to it. I just did a reading for someone yesterday where the guides were like, tell her that she's an angelic soul. She's from the angelic realm. All of her work in this lifetime, she feels burdened by the responsibilities of taking care of other people. She's here to learn about boundaries. She's here to learn that she has to prioritize herself and take care of her own needs. And I told her all of these things, and she just burst into tears. And she was like, oh man, you're describing my whole life. I am a caretaker for my grandparents. I have a job working with children, and I feel very overwhelmed. I feel like I never get any time for myself, and I'm really frustrated by that. So from there, we went through, okay, well, let's learn how you can set some boundaries and let's do some energetic work together to help you relearn that you are important. Your needs do matter. It's okay to prioritize yourself. It's safe to do things for you. Because when a client presents themselves to me in that way, underneath all of it is a fear of abandonment. It's a fear of being alone. So we get into that in readings like this. Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. So you're really like taking and I just love this, right? Like people do come into things and they're just like, oh yeah, I just want to know like guidance on this, decision that I have to make. And the reason is like why, there's so many more things that you need to learn that's actually creating the block even to the decision in the first place. Right? Like
Yep.
you're here not being able to make the decision because of all of these blocks, and it feels like so much noise. So what you're doing is just like giving them so much clarity onto like why they're even in this in the first place. Maybe the decision is just like leave the whole thing behind, scrap the whole idea, move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
100%.
Wow. So do you do readings? So obviously, what you said, you did a reading yesterday. So you're still doing readings, correct? And then you're also
Yes. Yeah.
guiding people through. So what is that process like?
Yeah, so I big part of my legacy is that I know that I can't do one-on-one readings forever. I love to do them. I'll probably still do them for a few years, who knows, but I feel guided to teach others this modality so that I can have a whole network of readers who specialize in this. My ultimate dream would be that every person, every household in the world has access to the Akashic Records. Now, I don't know if that will happen in this lifetime, but that is something that my soul feels really called to help accomplish, is spreading this gift with as many people as I can. So in my certification, I teach, first of all, how do we learn how to access the records for yourself? Before we're even going to teach you how to do this for other people, you got to focus on you. I know that's a very similar philosophy in the Reiki world, is have to learn how to give yourself Reiki before you can give it to other people. So I teach you how to access the records for yourself so that you can tap into your own past lives. You can tap into your childhood and stories there that may be holding you back. I teach you how to learn about the purpose of the soul and how your incarnation plan is created before your soul even arrives here. So we teach you how to tap into that. And then from there, once you've gotten a good basis in learning to channel, learning to connect with your Akashic record keepers, who are the guides and who are responsible for your records. Once you feel like you have a good basis in doing this for yourself, then I teach you how to do readings for other people. And that's where honestly, that's my favorite part of the mentorship, because it's harder to read for yourself than it is to read for other people, because we have so much bias, inherent bias about our own decisions and choices and what we want. So our ego mind can really get in the way for ourselves. So my clients, especially with learning to channel, there can be so many nerves around, and imposter syndrome. Am I doing this correctly? Is this real? Is this happening? Or am I crazy? Am I just making this up? No, you're not making this up. This is really happening. And when you learn to read for somebody else and they're sitting there and they're like, yeah, all of that resonates with me. That's amazing that you just shared that. It builds your confidence so much as an intuitive. And it's just so beautiful to watch, because by the midway point of my program, my clients are like, oh, I can't do this. This is real. This is happening. And it's just like, yay. I start to celebrate. I'm like, yay, this is just the best. So it's really fun. And you leave a fully certified Akashic Records practitioner with lots of different energy healing techniques and questions to ask the record keepers, and the psychology behind how to work with certain types of clients. So it's a whole world, it's a whole thing, but it's a lot of fun, and find that it's really healing for not just you, but for everybody around you too.
Mm. So how would somebody know if they're like drawn to this, if this is for them? Like what might they be seeing either in their spiritual practice, or what might they be feeling as far as like feeling the pull to this?
There's an inherent fascination, I find, with the Akashic Records themselves. You were drawn to a reading, again, like my story, you see the words out there and you're curious about it, you want to know about it. So and it feels like for most of my clients, they're like, I know I need to learn this. There really isn't a questioning process of, oh, is this the right modality for me? It's like, no, I know I need to do this. And I have people now who are like, Emily, I know I need to learn this from you. I'm not ready. And that may not happen tomorrow, but maybe it's next year, but I know I'm going to be learning from you. And I'm like, yes. And I know that I have a big soul contract here to teach a lot of people this work. So a lot of, and that's the thing, this happens at a soul level. Like, you've already signed up before this lifetime for me to teach you. So there's just an inherent knowing and an awareness of like, yes, this is for me.
Yeah. And I feel like that is such a big thing. It's like we have to learn to listen to ourselves. Like if you keep seeing, like Emily kept seeing Akashic Records, right? Opening up different things. Like those are signs for you. Not everybody is seeing those signs. You are seeing them, right? And it's what you're doing with them that makes the difference. So if you keep seeing Akashic Records, like this is, and now you're listening to this podcast, it's a sign. right?
Mhm.
It's your sign to, contact Emily and see what she has going on. So when are you starting this?
Yeah, so the next round of the certification starts in January. So it's a great time to kickstart your new year. And I really love teaching it at the beginning of the year because it becomes a big part of your story. The students who learned with me at the beginning of this year, it became a huge part of their story this year. I had clients who went from zero to incredibly psychic and intuitive in just a few months of working with me, and it totally shapes the rest of your decisions and choices, and you just start seeing life through a whole new lens. So yeah, we'll be starting in January. It's a 12-week certifications, and there is extra practice hours and time involved, so it's a little bit of a more lengthy process, but I find it goes entirely too fast. And by by the time it ends, it feels like we've only just begun. So it does go by
Wow.
very quickly, and yeah, it's really transformative.
That is incredible. I feel like I need to sign up. It sounds so great. Oh my gosh, that's so great. So, Emily, what is like a closing message that you would have for the listener right now in hearing everything that you just mentioned, all of the trust, all of the following the heart, the Akashic records, really being guided by their psychic abilities? Like what message do you have for them?
You already know what your next leap is. And I get the chills as I say that
I just
because
got the chills big time.
I
Big
think
time.
I think we overthink these things, and we sit in our human resistance, and the ego mind will try to talk us out of the big decision, the big leap. I feel like a lot of us, and this is being channeled, by the way, because I feel this so deeply. I feel like a lot of us are on the precipice of some really big change coming in 2025. That 2025 may be the year for you to just go all in on your purpose, make the big move, commit to finding your partner, get married, have the children, whatever you feel like that next leap is. You already know what it is today. So let's start getting you prepared for what's to come for you in the new year, because you're already on the track. It's already happening. The universe is always already conspiring in your favor to line up the things that are necessary for your soul to make this journey, to make that next big move that you're here to make. And you already know what it is. So you don't need to come see me for me to tell you, or Tiffany. So just
That's
lean
right.
into it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you already know the way. I love that. Emily, this was such an eye-opening conversation. I'm so grateful that you shared all of this information with us. How can everybody get in contact with you, follow along with what you're doing, and sign up for the Akashic Records certification?
Yes, you can find me at Emily the Mystic everywhere: Instagram, YouTube. I have a ton of free content and free videos there. My podcast, The Emily the Mystic Show. And you can sign up for a reading with me or the Akashic Records certification on my website, emilythemystic.com.
Awesome. Emily, thank you so much for being here. So grateful for you. And guys, what I would love for you to do is just let us know what was your biggest takeaway from this conversation. Send it to us at Spirit and Soul Studio on Instagram, or reach out to Emily directly and let her know like what really resonated with you about all the things that she spoke about. And as always, I'm so grateful for every single one of you that is listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.